Chronic stress occurs where an individual is exposed to a prolonged state of tension from stressors which can cause various physical manifestations. Chronic stress can increase the risks of strokes, heart attacks, cause high blood pressure, increase the susceptibility to anxiety and depression, encourage infertility, and accelerate the aging process. Situations that can cause chronic stress include relationship conflict and demanding careers. Stress has been shown in studies to alter the function of white blood cells, which are the body's primary defense against invading pathogens or germs. Cortisol is produced in stressful situations, and this chemical prevents the production of chemicals known as cytokines, which are the signals that white blood cells send to the brain and endocrine glands. Essentially, in the circumstance of chronic stress, cortisol is overproduced and reduces the amount of receptors that the immune cells produce, leading to an unnaturally long period of inflammation, the process by which the body fights infection and heals trauma. Chronic stress and its effects. Regular stress therapy, or in the case of TST, a device which reduces the perception and responses to stress emotions, is useful in combating the ill effects caused by prolonged exposure to the biological conditions brought on by the stress response. It has been shown that chronic stress slows the healing of wounds by up to 25%. It can also affect the part of the brain where memories are processed. Oversecretion of stress hormones for a prolonged period can have an adverse effect on individuals who are attempting to form memories, such as studying for exams. It was also demonstrated in a study of female monkeys at the Wake Forest University in North Carolina that those individuals who suffered from higher levels of stress also presented higher levels of visceral fat in their bodies. This is not just true in the supposition that some individuals who are experiencing stress would comfort eat, but also the biological conditions of a stressed individual can also promote the accumulation of visceral fat despite a healthy, balanced diet. Not only does the stressful environment place a strain on the individual's organs, such as the heart, higher fat levels can also contribute to the possible onset of heart disease. The psychology of stress. Hans Selye, a Hungarian endocrinologist who studied hypothetical responses to stressors, published a model which divided stress into two categories. The first was called eustress, and the other distress. He said that where stress enhances an individual's function, such as challenging work enhancing mental function, it can be called eustress, essentially a positive type of stress. The second type, distress, was categorized as a type of stress that was persistent and not alleviated by the individual's ability to cope or adapt to it. This type of stress may lead to anxiety or inhibited behaviors. The difference between the types of stress that go on to fall into one of the two categories is decided by the difference between an experience, the individual levels of expectations, and the mental or physical resources available to cope with the stress caused. Managing stress. Through the process of human evolution, our species has adapted to the various environmental challenges it has faced. The skin's increased melanin content in hotter climates, for example. Those individuals who were not biologically equipped to survive in a certain environment failed and died out, such as Neanderthals. Those who were able to survive did so and passed their adapted genes on to future generations. As the theory states, it took millions of years for apes to evolve into humans, adapting slowly to changing environmental conditions and making use of developing motor skills and dexterity. However, Evolution cannot hope to keep up with the speed at which modern living has progressed since the technological boom in the mid-1980s. Evolution now plays such an infinitesimal part in the way we cope with the pace and stress of modern life. It's not even worth factoring into it the equation of how our species is adapting biologically to the new levels of stress placed upon us. We are learning to adapt psychologically, however. Generally speaking, stress management includes practices which help us to cope with psychological stress effectively. A stimulus which causes our fight or flight response can be managed through any strategy which can alter the situation, or, in the case of TST, where the situation itself cannot be altered, it alters the response to the situation. As already stated, if stress can be effectively managed, it can reduce the impact on our physiology, which can lead to poor health and increased susceptibility to illness. TST can increase your capacity to tolerate stressful stimuli by reducing your heightened fixation on the thoughts and emotions which bring about the psychological stress. Other methods of distracting the mind from fixating on the thing that causes the stress, such as an upcoming exam, job interview, or other thought which seems to go round and round in your head until it feels like you may never be able to think about anything else, include simple things, such as listening to music, or planning for something enjoyable, such as a dinner party or holiday. One method I used when I suffered panic attacks was to spot car registration plates and try to make a 3-word phrase using the last 3 letters. Sitting in a car on a long journey increased the tendency for my mind to fixate, and using this game distracted it. Although I was still fixating, the game definitely helped, especially when I was faced with letters like Q, X, J. TST provides emotion-based stress management. As each individual will have a different set of stress stimuli, the first and most effective manner of dealing with stress is to remove or manage the physical aspects of stress. Solving problems or taking yourself out of a situation that causes you stress will always be the best way of coping. However, where an individual finds themselves in situations they cannot avoid, then the emotion-focused coping processes of TST can be employed. In effect, managing the negative emotions caused by a specific situation.